President Smooth 98.1. My name is Victor Pepple. In the next 30 minutes, we'll take you around Nigeria. We'll bring you the big headlines for today, the 21st of July, with detailed analysis accompanying them. You can be part of the show. I'll tell you how after I introduce my guest. For a Thursday morning, we have Tunde joining us. Good morning, Tunde. How are you doing?
Morning, Victor. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for coming. Quickly, let's tell you how you can be part of the show today. WhatsApp, always available for you. 0809 4440981. Again, 0809 4440981. That's the WhatsApp number to send a message to us. On Twitter, we are at Smooth981FM. Do send your tweets right before 8 a.m. and be sure we will acknowledge them. Send them quite early. All right. We're streaming live on YouTube. Smooth 981 FM Lagos is where to catch us and see the visuals of what's going on live in the studio. We kick things off from Premium Times today. Darkness as Nigeria's electricity grid collapses again. According to the Premium Times, seventh time in 2022. Now, major Nigerian cities, including the Federal Capital Territory, were thrown into darkness on Wednesday when the country's electricity grid collapsed. Electricity distribution companies announced on Wednesday that the collapse occurred at about 11 a.m. And Wednesday's incident is the sixth reported collapse in this year.
Hmm. Yeah, reported. Right. We know that this has probably occurred a lot more than it has. I mean, we all live here. We all experience it. I also saw this message, yesterday. To be honest, I wasn't expecting light for quite some time, but surprisingly, I think past midnight the lights, did return. But it's indicative of the state of our, electricity generation and our installed capacity. There's a lot of focus on the discos, but clearly, and their end is to distribute. So if you like to describe it as the last mile, distribute the power to the end user. But before then, there's generation and there's transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And very often, the transmission component, I mean, the generation component suffers from one very low install capacity, right? Um, and then transmission suffers from being overburdened, having outdated infrastructure. That affects the entire value chain, of course. So the discos naturally obviously don't have, then therefore don't have anything to distribute and supply to end users. There's a lot of focus, like I said, on the discos, but we need to focus on transmission as well. Our install capacity. Just for comparison, I mean, it mentions that uh, our our distribution average, right? We average about 40,000 megawatts. That's what we're able to distribute. Compare that to a population of 200 million. Just two quick examples on the African continent. If I were to take the two spectrums of stability, right? You can look at SA. SA has 40,000, megawatts of installed capacity. You can say that's on the high end. It's a stable nation and all of that. Okay, let's look at Libya. Yeah, that's been, it's been a civil war since forever, and it's been chaos, currently chaos. As at 2010, they had installed capacity of 6.8 gigawatts. They distribute 17,605 megawatts, even amongst the chaos, right? And both of them have populations that are less than a quarter of ours, or maybe, yeah, hovering at about that, right? Um, so you can see the clear difference. You can see why we are in the kind of situation.
Which brings to my next question. I hear we distribute an average of 4,000 megawatts in a country of over 200 million people.
That's just what I was going to.
Right? And the question will be, how efficient has this privatization been? I mean, I recall that the government did privatize distribution companies in 2013, right? We privatized our power sector, and distribution companies came on board since 2013 till now, 9 years after. Can we say that this has been really and thoroughly efficient?
Clearly, it hasn't been now. So we like these halfway house solutions, right? Where we do um, uh, cosmetic, surgery, or we just touch the surface. There's a value chain. to power generate to delivering power, and there's installed capacity, which is your generation. How much can you generate? What facilities are you used to generate? Are they up to date? Then there's transmission, and then there's discos. So even and it gets even there are probably more players within the value chain, but top level those three. Then you say you privatize one end, which is the last mile in essence, right? The discos need to rely on transmission, they need to rely on generation, and then they're not even fully privatized. They're, I think government retains a 40%
Yes,
stake,
government has a
and the
40%
government
stake.
has a responsibility within that. The government is meant to supply gas, and we all know that the government has been failing on their part, in that arrangement. So clearly, it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked for very obvious reasons. You can't just focus on if there's a decay in the entire value, you need to look at the value chain and make changes and make improvements. And maybe that's what the next story is.
Exactly. So the next story from this day newspaper: Senate okays electricity bill to boost power distribution. Will these help improve the power supply in Nigeria?
Well, definitely, I think this bill is key, right? Because electricity has been on the exclusive list forever. You couldn't, if you generated whatever quantity of power you generated, you must give it to the national grid, and then it enters this mess, right? But this seeks to you know electricity is apparently is on the concurrent list according to the constitution. So this finally, I guess, is coming in line with that, and creating a bill that fully and properly privatizes that, right? So it says the bill, once signed into law, will open the space. It allows states or individuals with the capacity to generate power on their own and distribute. Very key, right? It allows, because it's on concurrent list, allows state governments to license people who intend to operate mini grids within states. Very key. This one I found surprising, but it says now gives legal backing to the use of renewables. I didn't think we need to create future thinking bills if our current laws restrict. I mean, it's the advancement in technology. Yes, obviously there needs to be some process to make sure that new technology is safe. For instance, we won't just want someone maybe installing a nuclear plant without any license and say it's innovation. So it does that. And I agree that it's the only way to solve the power problem. The space is now open with little restriction, to generate your power and distribute. We couldn't do any of that before. So all of these things, are key. And I think it will finally open up the space to proper investment, right? Because it does need investment. The points here, part of it, and we all know that a large part, even so, we say we distribute 4,000 megawatts, right? We generate slightly more than that. We generate more than that. But you'd be surprised to learn that as much as 50% of that is lost or stolen, whichever way you want to say it, from generation to actual distribution. So there's a lot that needs to happen in there.
Exactly, because this current administration claim they generate as much as 8,000 megawatts,
which is in line with the 50% that I say gets lost.
Right,
yeah,
and
this is what distributors tell you.
But if we generate as much as 8,000, what is the problem? Why aren't we able to transmit more than 4,000?
It's the decay and rot in the system.
Yeah. Anyways, let's keep it going to our next story. To the House of Representatives, the Green Chamber. We'll come to that, but still staying with the Red Chamber now. Senate passes bill to establish National Social Security Commission. Should we be establishing more commissions? In fact, I want to tie the next story to it quickly. So this one is from the Vanguard. Senate passes bill to establish National Social Security Commission. And if you look at the This Day newspaper, you will see that Reps okay bill on Tax Crimes Commission.
Okay, so look, and we have to. So okay, I'll deal with both of them together, but they're very separate, right? So the first one, speaking about the Senate passing a bill to establish a National Security Commission, is interesting. On the one part, on the surface, you say this is good, right? You can ideally say this is, but ultimately the truth is that it is down to your politics, right? And how and through which prism you view the world, and you view how you'd like your country to be run, or what you feel are the priorities for essentially your politics, essentially. So for me, there's a subtle difference. between strengthening social services, and instituting social security. Yeah? I'm all for strengthening social services, right? So we need to have things in place to make sure that women and children are protected if children are in an abusive home, that that the state has social services that can take those kids on, that the state has safeguards to make sure all children of school age are in school. I'm saying strengthen social services versus instituting social security. Because my view is that we haven't even gotten past first base, right? And what I mean by first base, we already pay for quite a lot. Take education, for instance, where we say the government says, there's free education, all the way through, and see how we've done with that. We're making a total mess of it, right? It's underfunded. We're not even doing that right. Now we're saying we're trying to expand the scope of the things that the government, wants to pay for and take care of. Even if we set stealing aside, right, or the misuse of funds like this, I'm just thinking about the capacity for in a country like ours, where if you look at in the development of nations, right, even those that are social states today, or you can describe as social states today, didn't start as social states, and they definitely, in developing a nation, didn't put social institutions, social security at the first phase. It's investments, right? So it's a more capitalist outlook for nation building. It's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for a country, when you reach a certain stage, yeah, and say, look at how far we've come, we've really built. Can we now make the society more inclusive and better for all? Then they start to put social programs in place. We haven't even gotten past first base, is my view, and there's a lot that we're trying to pay for that we're not doing properly, that we're just stealing the funds, and we're expanding it now, right? So what would it come down to? This kind of commission would then come down to unemployment benefits, right? It will come. So where is it going? Do you understand? Right. So I'm not really, I'm not convinced. Like I said, on the surface of it, looks good, but it depends on your politics and what you think the priorities of the country should be.
Implementation, how many people will be captured, also looking at the number of unemployed people we have in Nigeria.
Even unemployment, those are the things that are down to your
do we even have the money to pay unemployed people in Nigeria? But the reason why I tied both stories together is the creation of new commissions in a country where we complain about inability to even pay salaries of civil servants. Should we be creating more commissions?
We like commissions.
Exactly. So this one, like you rightly put out, is to fund and cater for the needs of unemployed, the old and aged in the country, underage children below 18 years old from broken marriages. Government wants to take care of them if this bill is signed into law. But the next bill is on establishment of National Inspector General for Tax Crimes Commission. Do we also need this?
Well, I wouldn't. Well, yeah. So now the thing is, I guess it's for focus. So obviously, the people who are covering this already, but now they want to create something for tax crime specifically. To be honest, I say this is a good one, right? For that additional focus. Yes, obviously, maybe it's just maybe the worry and the concern is maybe a duplication of efforts. But the truth is, tax generation or tax is the key and should be the key source of income, for any country. We haven't paid enough. I mean, the gift and or the curse of crude oil has, as being the main source of government income, has, made us not pay attention to a bunch of things. If we paid, if you look at the amount of what tax, contributes to government income, if it was much higher than it is, we would demand a lot more from our leaders. If you knew that coming 40%, 30%, or whatever it is, coming out of your pocket was funding the local government, commissioner or the state governor, you will be a lot more circumspect in who you put in power, and you demand a lot more. So there's a tie between taxation and governance. We haven't done well enough in that. So I think And then also, very importantly, the wealthiest amongst us don't pay their fair share, right? I feel the people who pay the most tax in the country are people who are payees, from payees, from corporate workers and corporations. But the wealthiest, if you look at the tax rate, I mean, there was a report a couple of years ago, the wealthiest people in the country pay next to nothing. That's not on, it's not right. Even for fighting crime, I mean, if you just think of in most developed countries, maybe take the States, and they go after, well-known criminals. Sometimes they're not able to get them on their crimes because it's obfuscated, but you can get them on tax. I mean, we can clearly see that, these are the turnovers in your account. This is what's going on, but you're not paying tax. So then they get them on that. Do you understand? So all in all, I think it's good.
All right. Yes. Before we even go to talk about tax evasion and tax avoidance, this one, we're going to take a break, but just to put this out there, we already have an agency saddled with responsibility of taking taxes. That's the FIRS and the state services, for instance, LIRS in Lagos. Other states have their state agencies that take taxes. Do we still need to create a commission because
so for crimes, tax crimes? So those guys, tax administration, collection, that they may not have they probably have a function
the FIRS
within there.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't the FIRS also mandated to go after those who are evading taxes? So why are we creating more commissions? I'm looking at cutting costs.
I agree with you, which is why I said we need to make sure there's no duplication. Those agencies have that function already today, but maybe there's a feeling that it needs to be more focused. My only issue is that we create an structure, we pay, it increases our costs, right? But now the question is if maybe the thinking is that it's impossible to marry both focuses, and they want to accept that. If it creates more focus, and then we can get the wealthiest people in the country to pay their fair share, I'm all for it. I'm all for us paying more tax, so we demand better.
Let's widen the tax bracket. Let's take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll head straight to your messages.
What's up? This is
yeah,
I get your point.
I was saying tax, by paying more tax, I mean widen that bracket, not individually paying more tax.
Yes, I get your point.
Dangotes and Lexon, I mean, see what they're paying personally. They're not paying anything.
I get you. But you see, that's the thing. They say that they're using the taxes, that they're supposed to remit to government to.
Yeah, they're getting all sorts of tax breaks and all sorts of,
Exactly.
So all of those shenanigans aside, I think I think taxes only contribute maybe only like 11% or so of government. I think that's nothing. That's why they don't answer us. That's why we're inconsequential to the equation. If you're contributing the vast majority, what has brought governments down over the years? What brought down the French government? What brought down the monarchy in the UK in the years before they reset it?
Right.
This is Paul, and
We're
you're listening
getting
to
back in.
It's poor economics and then increasing taxes.
Welcome back. Thank you very much for listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We're taking it over to your messages. Tony Chima from Ikeja. This 2023 campaign of a particular party will definitely generate lots of clapbacks. These bishops are not the regular ones. One was aiming at the camera of the journalist who asked his views on the Muslim ticket. Their cathedral must be at Oshodi. Okay, I'm not sure we're even discussing.
Not into this story.
We're not even discussing that. But he had to bring it in. Well, Joseph May is coming, says, good morning. Another collapse again. Isn't it high time to decentralize the grid, making them regional grid, or each state should produce and use whatever they generate? Also, it's obvious that there are cabals on this energy issue. Since time immemorial, despite huge investments and money commitment, yet we aren't in the league of energy power nations. Another commission will duplicate functions. Well done, Nigerian lawmakers. Tayo had that in. Let's take it over now to Fabian, who says, I wonder if power in Benin, Togo, or Niger have collapsed like that of Nigeria. Power, education, health, field, economy, etc. There really was a country. May the next election speak our minds. Nigeria need to invest in data. A country that has no data to plan is rolling out programs to give benefits to unemployed. Same Nigeria that fed ghost school children during lockdown. Another way to siphon and embezzle money. Why are we talking Shetima? I'm not sure we mentioned that, but Idima Puza is saying Shetima unveiling most Nollywood movie dramas needs to be done to prove that Khan is carried along by bringing in fake bishops attire for Nigeria. It's not even on our menu
I
today.
think what your listeners are saying is that you didn't put this on the menu. That thing broke yesterday night. Why is it not on your list?
Well, Ni is saying electricity transmission has been Nigeria's biggest problem for decades, yet the federal government has not been able to solve it. Nigeria should be humble and seek help from Egypt and South Africa, who have demonstrated competence in electricity generation, transmission, and distribution over the years. The party in power has failed to implement the changes it promised Nigerians in 2014 and does not deserve to continue in 2023. I hope Nigerians and their parents, Nigerian youths and their parents will come out to vote next year. But let's take it right back to the stories for today. Looking at this one in from This Day newspaper. Nigeria federal government to spend 1.4 trillion naira on health insurance premium for vulnerable Nigerians.
So I'll tie it to what the uh, uh, one of the messages from one of the contributions from the listeners saying we don't even have we don't have data, which is I say you need to build in phases, right? You can't put the cart before the horse. You need to build in phases. So the fact that we don't have data makes me wonder how they would implement this, right? If I'm being cynical, I can say, why is it now? Why now, leading up to election, are we hearing the desire to spend this and spend that? Almost similar to the lead up to the last election, and we're talking about trader money and talking about this money, all sorts of schemes and programs that are obfuscated. You can't trace. You don't know who the beneficiaries are. And all of that. So they say they want to spend 1.4 trillion on health. To cover the health insurance of about 83 million Nigerians who fall within the vulnerable group of citizens in the country. And my question is, who are they? We know that that we have probably the overwhelming majority of our 200 million population is vulnerable, right? But it would be comforting if amounts like this are to be spent, that there is some data around them, there's some register, there's something, right? And it's not just money that disappears into the ether. Also, what's the definition of vulnerable? What's our definition? There's no definition exactly, and none has been provided, right? Is it those who are out of, is it the unemployed? Is it children? What is your definition of vulnerable? And who are these people? Before you spend our money, let us know how. Because in the end, they say, oh, we spent 1 point on 83 million people, vulnerable insurance, no trace, nothing, no improvements. We still see people on the road. We still see messages flying around, people seeking, private donations for organ failure. And you still see, a bunch of all those things, even for basic, cosmetic, fixing clefts and all of those things that. So who is the government? Who are they paying this health insurance for, right? So really, the thing is, those are the kind of issues that I have. But in the end, is it right, if we're looking at this from a broader perspective, is it right to institute national health insurance? Of course it is, to strengthen it. They instituted a new insurance a new health insurance authority in 2022 to improve on what it is that we had in the past. There were issues with previous arrangements. State governments are not participating. All of that is different now. So from a wider perspective, it's the right thing to do. But how we spend money on nameless faces is my concern and issue.
All right. The Ogun State government under fire over school where students sit on floor. The government had come under severe criticism after photos of students of a secondary school in the state showed them on the bare floor while sitting their examination.
And just like I said, like the previous story, and we want to expand social spending, right? When we haven't even gotten the first base, right? The first ones that we said we are spending on, right? The things that are important, education, healthcare, we've not gotten that right, and we now want to expand social spending, right? To me, it's just the stealing that we expand. This is, again, anyone who's acting shocked here is living in another reality or is sticking their head in the sand, right? This is the situation at the vast majority of government schools. There are classrooms without roofs, classrooms without, boards, nothing, right? So that children are sitting on the floor. The only thing that's making this go around is the fact that every phone is camera ready now and social media. There's absolutely nothing new here. I mean, I think the only new thing that I learned from this story is Premium Times doesn't know how to spell Messiah. Really, is everything else is stock standard.
All right.
Now it does say one final thing. It says that according to Mr. Bass, the school has over 1,000 students, but only 14 teachers. For me, that is the bigger problem. We all remember. I mean, and I'm not saying it's not ideal. We all remember from a time, at least when the country, not long, when we're still I was going to say when we're still developing. Goodness, we are still now developing. But pictures of schools under trees. And I'm like, okay, I won't complain about that so much as long as learning is occurring, right? Now learning isn't occurring, right? Plus there are no facilities. That's the issue. 14 teachers to 1,000 students is the problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Tunde, for that analysis. But quickly, let's jump back to your messages on WhatsApp. Talks comes in, says, I agree we need to drive a better way for increasing and collecting tax, but the loopholes need to be blocked and taxes put to work. Citizens must feel the tax working. Nigeria has been in spiritual darkness for long. Now we face a complete physical darkness as well. God help us. Data for planning, and we have a Ministry of National Planning. There is God. Okay. Thank you very much. Everyone seems to be commenting on the Bishop story, but I'm not sure we took that today. Cisco Delgado, I hope it's not the bandits that vandalized the grid. That's it for now. Let's see if we can throw one more.
Describe as bandits. The people who have been vandalized my grids are.
There was a report one time that it's because of the bandits in Niger State. That's why there was a grid collapse. I think the last one. So this one will.
Grid collapse is our politicians and
Right before we go, day after accident, NCAA suspends Dana Airlines operation.
Yeah, scary. So they say they did a health check, financial and economic health check carried out on the airline, and the findings are that the airline, can't run business as it should. So that's always scary when you see there's a financial and economic health check on the airline. So it means that the implication is that they will cut corners, they will skimp on security, access security and safety standards, and a bunch of other things. It's never good for in an industry where you need to maintain the highest possible standards for safety and all of that. So yeah, that's worrying.
We must thank you very much, Tunde, for being a part of the show. You can catch him on Twitter at Big Cuffs. That's it. Yeah. So Big Cuffs. I was trying to get that right. 8:15 will be time for the Grapevine. My name is Purple. Good morning.
Invest.
Couldn't remember it. I know it's Chocolate is always singing.
So, quick question: if